Hey, this is Derek. I'm at a book conference in London, and it's pretty funny. This is where like 5 or 6 years ago, when I first started publishing fiction, I came to this big Comic-Con at the same location at Olympia in London. But I didn't know anybody, and I had a few books out, but I wasn't really confident as a writer. So there were these like big, famous, traditionally published authors there, and they were nice, but the Comic-Con kind of separated the self-publishers with the traditional publishers, and we were stuck in a little corner. So all these big lines came past our table, but they weren't really stopping for us because they didn't really know who we were. And at one point, a book blogger actually came around and asked me, like, are you an author? And I was non-committal. I said, well, I'm trying to be. I made kind of a joke. So when she did a big video about all the authors, and she interviewed all the authors at the book conference, she didn't include me because I wasn't upfront about, like, yes, I'm an author, here's my book. Because it's really awkward. I hid under the table for a lot of that day just because it was awkward talking to all these people and trying to tell them about my books. I'm definitely an introvert. For some people, conferences like this, if you're good at talking to people, they can be a lot of fun, but for a lot of authors, they can be really draining. And also, it's not really the best way to reach the right audience. It can be really good to connect with your fans once you build a platform, but if you're just trying to sell books or get the word out about your books, it's much easier to start off by doing online strategies so that you can test and make sure you're getting results. So you can, keep track of your conversion, how much you're paying for your clicks, your costs. If you're doing a bunch of stuff, people, they do stuff like rent out a billboard, or they do a bunch of press releases, or they hire PR. A lot of people, they'll take $5,000 or $10,000 to do PR for you, but they don't promise any results because they know they're not responsible for your conversion, which is really why in the last video I talked about your book design, because if you don't have the blurb and the cover right, you can spend a lot of money on visibility and it's not going to convert. You're not going to make your money back. So in this video, I'm going to talk about smarter marketing strategies that you can use, especially if you don't have a platform. And there are different ways to do this. Last night I was out, I'm only here in London kind of to socialize and to meet some of my other author friends who I know are here, but I'm not signing myself. And I was out to dinner and drinks with some of them, and these are all six-figure authors who do really well, but all of them are learning new things, and all of them have such a different path. It's really interesting to see how, some of us are in KU, Kindle Unlimited, some of us aren't. Some of us price really high, some of us price low. Some of us do advertising, some of us haven't done any advertising. They're all making a lot of money with their books, and they've all taken different paths. So there's definitely no one right answer. And things are changing all the time. So these are people who have been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and we all still feel like, Amazon's changing all the time. Maybe we don't know what we're doing, but I'm going to tell you my strategies that I think have worked really well for me, especially if you're building, like if you're starting out without a platform, without a budget. I get a lot of people in my Facebook group saying, I don't have any time, I don't have any money, now what do I do? And of course that's frustrating. You're probably going to have to invest some amount of time or money, and it's a trade-off whether you're investing the time or the money. And in some circumstances, it's better to pay for some things so that you can spend your time writing more books. On the other hand, there's a lot of stuff that you just can't pay other people to do because no one's going to do it as well as you can do it yourself. So you do need to learn some things, and if you don't have a budget, it's going to take some time and effort. Like, you can do this without a budget, but you're going to have to learn how to do it and put in the time to do it yourself. So I'm going to find somewhere quieter. I'm going to give you my book launch strategies and my marketing strategies that I think are the most effective, especially for newer authors who maybe don't have a platform or a budget yet. So that's what this video is going to be all about. So I started this video in London a few days ago, and I was going to talk about publishing and launching and book marketing strategies, and then I broke my tooth on some popcorn. So right now I have kind of this gap where a tooth is supposed to be, and I'm going to the dentist in a few days. But in the meantime, I thought I'd finish this video with a PowerPoint presentation about all the things that I want to cover. This is probably better for us both anyway, because I tend to go on tangents or get distracted and rant a little bit. So I'm going to try to go through all of the stuff that people ask me. I have a lot of this stuff in the book and also in the Guerrilla Publishing workbook, which I try to keep updated with launch strategies. And a lot of this stuff changes as Amazon keeps updating things. There's definitely things that work really well until they don't anymore, or they work and then Amazon figures out that, some people are not cheating or abusing the system, but they're figuring out the hacks while they're still working. And then, there's some people that use them poorly and Amazon has to crack down. So Amazon really focuses on keeping its readers happy. They don't really care about the authors as much or the content producers because their business is not really the authors, it's the readers actually. And as I mentioned earlier when I was at the book conference, different people have different strategies. There's not really a one solution for all, but I think there are different things that work well depending on what you're doing right or wrong. So if you don't have a platform, if, like I mentioned, you don't have a great blurb or a book cover or enough reviews yet, then a lot of this marketing stuff isn't going to be effective yet. You're going to want to do the things that help you to solve the problems faster, or the things that help you to build an audience or get the visibility. With visibility, you're either paying to access somebody else with advertising, or you're building your own platform. So I'm going to talk about those two different strategies. You can do those both at the same time. So you don't have to choose between, should I build up my long-term slow platform or should I just focus on advertising? You can do both and you should do both. But there are also things that are more effective where you probably want to focus more of your attention. Anyway, I'm going to try to go through all of this stuff in about 40 minutes. There's a lot here, so you're probably going to want to take notes. And then I have more videos on each of these different steps or strategies. And if you follow me on Creativity or in the Guerrilla Publishing Facebook group, I try to share the most recent stuff or current processes that I'm going through. Right now I'm actually in the middle of a launch, so it's not actually going very well. And one of the really useful videos I think that I'm going to make after this one will be about, I started my launch, but it's not going well. What are the problems? So some of the troubleshooting, problem solving, how do you recover a failed launch, which is pretty common actually. Anyway, we'll start with the beginning, which is self-publish or traditional. I really am a big fan of self-publishing. Traditional publishing can be fun. It's just that they're not really looking for new authors without a platform. They may give you a publishing deal, but the average advance has gone down quite a bit. So it might be $5,000 or $10,000, which is paid over 3 years. Even if you get a great advance of like 100K, it's going to be split over 3 years, which means 30K a year. You're not really making a living. So since traditional publishing is also a lot slower, typically about a book a year, it's difficult to make a full-time income as a traditional published author. The other danger, I think, is that there's a big opportunity cost. So on the one hand, you're spending a lot of time with querying and agents, revising, editing, and trying to get the book published. You might spend a year to do that. You might spend another year, negotiating a contract before the book is out. This can totally depend on the publisher. The other thing I worry about is that a lot of people don't want to take responsibility for their own publishing or marketing. They just want to give it away to somebody else. They want someone else to take care of it. So that's why a lot of people prefer the idea of traditional publishing, because they think, someone else will do it all. And that's really not the case. Some publishers will do a lot for you, but there are also a lot of publishers who will just do a shotgun approach. So they'll buy a whole bunch of manuscripts, but they won't really do any investment or marketing, especially if they're paying you a low advance, like I said, around 10K or something. They're not really invested in your project. They're going to buy 20 different books and one of them might get lucky and make the money back. You don't really want a traditional publishing deal unless you're forcing them to pay you more, which means they're going to be more invested in your process and your project, which kind of means building your own platform. So a lot of traditional publishing houses, they will care about, do you have a website presence? Do you have social media followers? How big is your email list? So a lot of this marketing stuff, you don't want to put off until after you get a publishing deal, because by building your own platform sooner, it will help you to get a publishing deal and to force them to give you a bigger advance is kind of what you want. But in the meantime, you can just self-publish. And a lot of my author friends who are actually making good money, who are making a living, and by that I mean, 6 figures a year, they're self-published. I don't know a lot of traditionally published authors who are making that much money, but I know quite a few self-published authors who are. Doesn't mean it's easier. You do have to figure all this stuff out. But I think no matter which path you choose, self-published or traditional, self-published forces you to learn all the things that you need to do. So you're learning to get better about all of this stuff. Whereas if you go traditional, you're going to be putting all that off. You're not going to learn any of these things. So what happens is you get a traditional publishing deal, and then 3 or 4 years later, the book isn't selling. You ask for your rights back. The traditional publishing house goes, bankrupt, which has happened a lot recently, especially in the case of a lot of smaller presses, because the industry is changing so quickly. So you get your rights back, and then you have to figure everything out from scratch, and you're starting from zero. Even if you have, you've had a successful career as a traditionally published author, you're still starting over in this new kind of self-publishing world. So I'm a big proponent of self-publishing for a lot of reasons. But that doesn't mean it's easy to be successful. There is a lot to learn. It's easy to get a lot of things wrong. So I'm going to go through quickly kind of my launch strategy or publishing process to answer some of the main questions that people ask when they start looking at self-publishing. So the first one is Kindle Unlimited or Wide. Kindle and Amazon has its own publishing company, and if you give them your ebook for a 3-month exclusivity contract, then you get some extra features and benefits. A lot of people say they don't like to put all their eggs in one basket. They prefer, they don't want to give Amazon too much control, and they would prefer to publish everywhere to reach more readers. And it's true that Amazon has a lot of power, and that, that's too bad. But you can always, once you have the content, you should always be trying to make as much money as you can, or doing whatever's easy with your content to make a living. So I feel like a lot of people go wide for ideological reasons, not necessarily for profit reasons. There are people who go wide and do very well with it, but I think it's more difficult, especially if you're starting out. If you already have your platform, if you already have experience, if you have great covers and great blurbs, and if you know enough about advertising, then you can go wide successfully. But when you're starting out and you don't know anything, I think you'll see some benefits from being in Kindle Unlimited. One fact is just that you'll only be worried about one platform. So you can focus on just, driving all the traffic to one platform, trying to push your rank up. You get a sales rank on different platforms. So when you sell more books on Amazon, your sales rank will be higher, and that means you'll have more visibility. Also, when you're in Kindle Unlimited, it seems like you have an automatic rank boost, because Amazon is kind of helping to promote books that are in Kindle Unlimited, because that's their program. They charge everybody, $10 a month or whatever it is, and they get a certain number of borrows. They can kind of check out books, and then you get paid by the page reads, and the page reads are always kind of fluctuating, but especially if you write fiction, and especially if you have longer books or longer series, you can make quite a bit of money with Kindle Unlimited. If you have a shorter nonfiction book or some short stuff, then I maybe would think about going wide. Also, I don't think I mentioned here, but you can also do something that's called perma-free, which doesn't actually mean it's free always. But if you want to make something perma-free, you have to put it up on Amazon and then also put it up on a wide distributor like Smashwords or Draft to Digital and set the price to free. And then you can go to Amazon and ask them to price match the book to free, give them the link to the book on Kobo or iBooks, and they will usually do that. Amazon's pretty good about price matching. So the reason you might want to do that is to reach people without promotion or marketing or advertising, because you have something that's just out there. It can be really good for a series starter. It can be really good for something that you're giving away to other people for free to get them on your email list, or just to kind of get known. So for nonfiction books, a shorter kind of prequel guide, something quick and easy that solves a general problem. I'm not really going to talk about nonfiction stuff, I think, here as much, but with nonfiction, you kind of want to look at the biggest base of the pyramid and address the biggest common problem. So one thing I just did, I have a book called The Plot Dot, which helps people to write fiction. It's a really short little guide, but I made it perma-free because previously it was an opt-in bribe. Previously, it was something I was giving away on my website. It was all free, and I would hope people would sign up to my email list. The problem with that is people had to come to my website first or find out about me first before they figured out that I had that free book. So by making it perma-free, now it's wide everywhere. and it's free on Amazon. So some people can download that free book and get to know me a little bit. And then at the end of that book, I have a call to action for them to check out other resources or to sign up for my email list or to buy my other main book, my paid book, which is kind of the main one. So it helps to have something free and something paid. You don't have to give away like your main book that you worked really hard on. You can give away something a little easier. With Kindle Unlimited, you also have a couple extra features. One of them is that every 3 months you get 5 days that you can set the book for free. So it's kind of a free promotion. That doesn't work as well anymore as it used to, but it's still a pretty good way to reach new readers. What I typically do these days is I will start the book. I'll probably do a pre-order and then I'll start it kind of at full price, and then I will I'll use one of my free days, because if people download the book for free on Amazon, even if you're using your KU bonuses or if you're using permafree, it will show as a verified review. So rather than trying to give out ARC copies, ARC, advanced reader copies of your book to reviewers and then having them go post a review, which Amazon might flag because they know they didn't buy the product, and Amazon wants to keep its reviews really clean and honest. So you may have some difficulty with your reviews disappearing or vanishing. So I'll give it away for free. Even if I give away ARC copies, I'll still make the book free for a day or two so that my email list can download the book for free, and it will show as verified review, because I want to get a lot of reviews really quickly. I'll talk more later about getting reviews and some of the challenges. But for now, that's one reason why, a free strategy works really well. Then what I'll sometimes do, I'll try to keep it at full price for the first month. The second month, I might do a 99-cent campaign with ad stocking, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then the third month, I might use the rest of my free days before, the 3 months is up, and then I get the benefits back. If I enroll for another 3 months, I get the benefits back, and I can do it all over again. It does help to do some variations between free promotions or 99-cent promotions. I know a lot of people are skeptical about discounts or free promotions, so I'll answer a few other comments I often hear. Some people say, if you give away your book for free, you're training people not to buy your book. And they say, I worked really hard on my book, I deserve to get paid for it. I'm not gonna, devalue literature by offering it free or cheap. It's also kind of true that free and cheap don't work as well as they used to. You used to be able to use these strategies really well and see pretty good results. But I want you to keep 3 things in mind, and I'll try to go through them without forgetting one. The first one is you're going to be spending money anyway. So if you're trying to justify a full price point, you need to convince readers your book is worth that money. There's no right pricing for books. If people don't want to spend money on your book, it doesn't matter how long you spent putting into it or how much it means to you or how hard you're working to market your book. If people don't want it, the price doesn't matter. But if you can make people want your book, then also the price doesn't matter. So you can justify a full price point when your cover is awesome, when you have great reviews, when you have a kick-ass blurb, and when you're getting the visibility. But that's difficult to get all that stuff right. So advertising can totally work at a full price point when you're doing everything right. But in the meantime, you could be throwing money away because you're not doing things right. You could be spending thousands of dollars on visibility and promotion and marketing trying to justify this full price point when you could see much better results with a free or 99-cent promotion without the hard work or the expense. So it's not that you're giving your book away for free, it's that you're choosing more effective marketing strategies. That was the first one. The second one is that if you are still problem solving, you need to figure out what's wrong faster. So if you're trying to justify a full price point, you're paying for advertising, even if you're doing okay, you might sell, 100 copies, which is a good launch goal, but you're not really getting enough data to figure out if things aren't working. So if you're trying to figure out advertising at a full price point, you're not getting, people aren't buying the book. Maybe like 10% of the people seeing your ads are actually buying the book, which means you're probably losing money. Maybe you're even breaking even, which is amazing. But even so, you're not really learning enough to fix the problems. With a free promotion or 99-cent promotion, you're going to get more sales or downloads faster, which will allow you to do more problem solving and figure out, testing your conversion. So if you're advertising to a 99-cent offer or a free offer, you can check and see if your offer is converting. Do people click on your advertisement? Do people buy the book? Why or why not? Are they joining your email list? Are they joining your social media profiles? You want to be building a platform so you can ask for feedback, so you can quickly course correct and figure out what you're doing wrong, so that eventually you can go up to this full price point. And the third thing, which I'll circle back to later, is that Amazon needs a lot of data to figure out who to promote your book to. So if you're selling some copies to some people at full price, you're not really giving Amazon enough information to do the marketing for you. Amazon wants to suggest the right products to the right people, but they need the data, they need the information. So you need a lot of people landing on your page and buying or downloading the book. So having a free promotion or a 99-cent promotion, a free promotion, you can get a couple thousand downloads. And you want to be careful, because you don't just want freebie seekers in general, which can also screw up the information. You don't want to, it used to be really important on Amazon, there was an also bought section. So you want to keep your also boughts clean, which means Amazon has a system of recommending books to its readers. So it will say, people who looked at this book also looked at this other book. Or if people have been buying or downloading your book, people who bought this book have also bought this other book. You want your book to be downloaded or bought by a lot of people who buy other books that are similar to yours in the same genre or category, so that Amazon knows where you fit in. And you can get that data, you can give that data to Amazon faster if you're being deliberate with your targeting and you're getting more conversion. And by conversion, I mean, if people go to your Amazon page, do they buy the book? It's hard to actually get that data. You kind of have to, one way that you can do it is with advertising. If you pay for 1,000 clicks or something, you can see how many people buy the book. You can do that with Facebook ads or Amazon ads, which we'll talk more about later. But there's also the problem of if you're sending the wrong people to your page, the conversion won't be as good. And I think Amazon does keep track of the traffic versus the conversion. So if you send a ton of people to your page, but they're the wrong people and they don't buy the book, that can actually hurt you and your sales rank will go down. So you want to be deliberate with your targeting, which is why advertising is great, because you can really get very specific. And you want to be sending the right people to your book and getting as much conversion as possible, especially in the beginning, especially during a launch. So this 99-cent campaign or free campaign, it's also just really good because it will help give Amazon more information, because more people are buying or downloading or reviewing the book. The problem with just trying to justify a full price point is that it's very slow, and you're probably not going to get that much data or information, which means Amazon is not going to do any organic marketing for you. I will talk more about advertising in a minute, but first, I'm a big fan of building my own platform. So the ideal version of platform is that you can communicate with your readers for free. So if you build up your own platform, rather than paying to advertise and paying per click, you can build a really big platform and reach people a lot easier. So for example, when I do a 99-cent deal or a free deal, I can email my audience and tell them about it, and they will go download it. So rather than trying to rely on a BookBub, I don't think I have BookBub here, but I'll talk about it in a minute. Rather than relying on somebody else emailing for you, if you build up your own audience, not only is it a chance to build a relationship with them, so you're not marketing to cold traffic, people who don't care about you or your books, you're hopefully pulling them in, telling stories, sharing good content, so that they learn to like and trust you and appreciate your writing, so they're more likely to open your emails and take action. That's very valuable. Few authors are doing it well, which is why I think it's like one of the biggest book marketing hacks, because if you do it right, it gives you a tremendous amount of power. One of the ways that I build my email list, I'll actually start here with email list. I use King Sumo giveaways a lot, so I'm going to skip down to that in a minute. But I also offer something for people who subscribe to my email list, which is called an opt-in bribe. You can also have a call to action, and these are kind of two different things. So on the one hand, on your website, you want to have something to get people to sign up to your email list, like a free book or a free chapter or something shorter like a prequel or a short story. Just because it's free doesn't mean people are going to want it. So even on a free opt-in bribe, you still want to have a great cover. You still want to have a couple reviews and a great bribe, a great blurb. Sorry, a blurb. In case you're not familiar, it's confusing, but when I say blurb, I'm talking about the sales description or the sales copy that's up on Amazon. Some people also say blurb for, some other author has given me a review that I can put at the top of my sales description. That's also called a blurb, so it's kind of confusing. But I think in the indie publishing community, when people say blurbs, they're mostly talking about their sales copy. So you still need a really good one. You can't just say, get my free book. It has to have a nice cover. It has to have, some reviews. And then they click and they sign up to your email list where you can communicate with them. The problem with that is that people would have to come to your website first. So unless you're advertising that free offer, and you can do pretty cool things with Facebook ads and lead gen ads to get people on your email list cheaply, but it's difficult unless you have a lot of content, because then you're paying upfront per subscriber, and unless you have other books to sell them, you're not going to know whether or not you're losing money. So it's, I think, better to build the traffic on your blog or website with blogging, basically, which I think I'll also talk more about later. And that's something I've really focused on because most other authors aren't doing it at all. So I get a lot of traffic and I get a lot of people signing up from my website. But if you don't have a great website, or if nobody's visiting your website, then having an opt-in bribe, even though you should still have one, you're not going to get very many subscribers, which is why you can take the same opt-in bribe and you can make it perma-free by going wide, and it will have a much bigger reach. You should also have a call to action. So the call to action would probably be a little different. This would be the thing in the back of the book, or sometimes people put it at the front of the book, because even on Amazon, if you click that look inside feature, if you have your opt-in bribe at the beginning, people can even click on the link from the look inside. So even if they don't buy your book, they could still see your bribe, your call to action, and go sign up for it. It can be confusing if you have the same thing on your email list and in the back of your book. It depends on what you're doing with your marketing or your platform building. It might be a good idea to have different ones, but the idea is you would have some people who sign up to get a free book, but you don't know if they've read the book. So they might just be freebie seekers. You don't know that they're fans yet, so you can't talk to them like fans. If you have a call to action at the back of your book, then you know those people have read your book. So you know that they could be fans. You know that at least they've read something that you've written, and you can communicate with them in a different way. So you might want to have two of these, or separate them, or I usually keep two different lists. I have one list that I use just for kind of people who I know are interested in my genre. So I do a lot of giveaways. I give away book packages of other similar books in my genre. And then I know that they're interested in reading a certain type of literature, and I can talk to them and offer them free book deals or maybe 99-cent deals. I don't know that they're going to support me or buy a free book. I don't know that they're going to care about, life updates or anything like that. I still want to try to get them interested in me and my books, but they're still kind of cold traffic. Whereas the people, I have another list of actual fans who I know have read some of my fiction or nonfiction. And so I have two different lists. I talk to them a little bit differently, or at least I probably should. Sometimes I don't communicate very often. I have different autoresponder series. So when you join either list, you'll get kind of an introductory series, which some people call like an indoctrination series, because you're teaching them how to communicate with you and how to feel about you. There's a lot of cool things you can do with author branding. I have a bunch of other videos. I'm not really going to get into that here, but I do recommend a really long autoresponder series of about 3 months. If you email once a week, that's only 12 emails. You can write 12 good emails that communicate your brand and build trust and introduce your books to readers, and hopefully turn them from like cold freebie seekers into warm fans who are willing to buy your book. It's also not true that, by giving away free books, you're only attracting freebie seekers. Everybody will always pay money for what they want. So the problem is, if they don't know you, they don't trust you, they're not willing to take a risk and to buy your book. There are millions of books out there. People cannot afford to buy them all. There's no reason that they should buy your book. But a lot of those people might download a free book if you give it to them. They might start reading if you give it to them. You still need to do, just because they've downloaded a free book doesn't mean they have read it or they're going to read it. So you want to, like in the beginning of your autoresponder series, you want to just be trying to encourage them, with more reviews or stories. You want to be encouraging them to start reading the free book that they've actually downloaded, because most people, they don't even download those books. They have, hundreds of free books on their Kindle. So it's not over when they download your book. You still want to be the author who gets them to read the book by doing smart things in your autoresponder. So one of the things I do to build my email list is to give away other books that are similar to mine. So for example, I'll give away 20 best mermaid young adult fantasy books. I will make a blog post with that content. Then I will make a graphic with all those 20 book covers, which is great for like Pinterest or whatever. And then I'll target people on Facebook with Facebook ads, people who like young adult mermaid fiction. Or I could be more specific. With Facebook, you can add different targeting, and you can add, there's an and feature. So I can target people who like The Little Mermaid and who use Kindle Unlimited, and who like one of these 10 or 20 best-selling young adult authors. So I'm trying to get my targeting really specific so I'm not attracting too many of the wrong people. So even for the free thing, you want to try to screen your leads by only showing it to the right people who hopefully buy other books. Some of the things I do also with giveaways is, like, I'll give away that package of 20 books. I'll just pick one reader, and then I can buy those ebooks or those print books and send them to the winner. With King Sumo giveaways, after they sign up by email, they get encouraged to share the giveaway for extra entries, and you can also get them to follow you on social media or to do some other tasks for you. So I think that's probably the best solution. A couple years ago, I tried to build my own giveaway software, which was Bookfetti, and that doesn't really work as much anymore, especially because King Sumo has recently updated. But in my Bookfetti site, I may need to fix this, but in my Bookfetti site, I have a copy of King Sumo. I have the right license for it so that you can use King Sumo through my site to publish your own giveaway. So after I build an email list like this, then I may say, here's the link to the blog post where, you might like these other 20 books, because I want people to buy those other mermaid books while they're also downloading my book. So I might say, my book is free, my book is 99 cents, whatever, depending on how you want to do it. And also encourage them to buy other books that I want to show up in my also bots. I want my book to show up whenever someone sees those other books on Amazon. I want my book to show up right underneath it for free. That's something you can do by deliberately communicating, by building a targeted audience who likes a certain kind of thing, and then trying to encourage them to buy a certain subset of books. Amazon also has its own giveaway program. I know people who give away Kindles, and the idea is they give, you give away something of higher value, like a Kindle. You can set the giveaway to free or public. If you set it for public, you'll get, maybe 10,000 follows or entries or whatever. And the problem with giving away something for like a Kindle is that they may just want the Kindle or the cash, and they don't really care about your genre. However, it's free to build Amazon followers, and Amazon does probably send out a new book release when you publish something new. So I know people who just keep running Amazon giveaways to build a huge list of Amazon followers. You can't actually check. Amazon doesn't give you the data about how many people are following you, but more is better. So if you have 20,000 people following you on Amazon, Amazon might send out a new release email when you publish something new, which can be very effective. I would probably rather get them on my list, but I might start doing some of this stuff also. And I'm not sure that I would give away a Kindle. I might be a little more specific with my targeting. For example, for my nonfiction books, which are mostly about publishing, I have a really cool, really expensive $400 Bluetooth retro keyboard that I love, and everybody, whenever I take it out in public or at a signing, everybody loves it because it's amazing and it's beautiful. I could give away something like that on Amazon because I know it would only appeal to the writers or the authors, and they would really want it. So I might do something like that to get Amazon followers for my nonfiction brand. You also want to, I'm going to go off on a little tangent or side note, but on Amazon, you can set up your Author Central profile. It's still kind of a confusing system. Amazon recently converged CreateSpace, which was for print, and KDP, which was its ebook publishing house. It used to be two different things, which was weird. They put it all together into KDP, which is nice, but Author Central is still a different system. So you can set up an Author Central account. You can claim your books. You're allowed to have up to, I think, 3 different pen names. So I have one for my fiction, I have one for my nonfiction stuff, and I try to make sure that I claim the right books on each profile, because then when people look at my stuff on Amazon, it's not confusing, and I don't have all my fiction mixed with my nonfiction stuff, which would confuse my audience and my also bots. So you want to be a little careful about that if you write both fiction and nonfiction. So building up your platform like this is also really important just to get reviews. So I'm going to talk a little bit about getting book reviews, and the problem is reviews are absolutely critical. You need at least, I think, 10. Some people, you can do really well on a book with only 5 reviews or so, but even getting the first 5 reviews can be really difficult. And if you don't have 5 or 10 reviews, you really can't do any marketing. Nothing that you do to market or promote your book is going to work, because nobody's going to buy it if you don't have enough reviews. So the idea with ARC reviewers is that you will build a team, some people call it like a street team, of people who have opted in to receive news about your book and who may download and read a free copy so that they can provide a review. And it used to be the case that reviewers had to post on Amazon, I got this book in exchange for a voluntary review. That's not the case anymore. You actually don't want to use that language because Amazon doesn't like it. Amazon may suppress reviews that say things like that or delete reviews. Amazon really wants your reviews to be 100% authentic and honest, and they feel like if the reviewer knows you personally, even if they're your followers or your fans, then the review might be biased. And they also don't want you giving anything in exchange for a review. It used to be the case where, and it's still kind of the case, it's totally fine to give your book away for free for a review. It's just the terminology, the language of in exchange for. They don't want the review to be pressured. They don't want reviewers to feel like they're obligated to review your book. So you have to be really careful with ARC copies that even if you're giving them out, you can't force people to review your book. You can follow up and encourage a little bit. But there are some things, we actually got in trouble recently because I have a pretty complex system. I have another video showing my recent launch, which you can probably find somewhere. And I have a Facebook group and a Facebook page, and I have a big system for sending out ARC copies. But when we were setting up our Facebook page, we tried to do some accountability stuff, like ask for the Amazon, like what was their Amazon account so that we can check if they post reviews. And we also said something like, you're in our street team group, our Facebook group, this is just for reviewers. So if you're not reviewing the books, like you may get kicked out, because we only want people who have time to actively read and review our books to be in this group. You can't actually say that anymore. So even things like that, you need to be a little bit careful about. A lot of people do. I'm kind of under the microscope because a lot of people look to me for advice. So if I do anything wrong that breaks Amazon's TOC, terms of service, someone usually emails me pretty quickly and tells me about it. one of the things that actually changed really recently was that the terms of service now even says, it used to say like you can give away books, like even if you're in Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is an exclusive 3-month contract. Even if you're in KU, you can give away books to reviewers. That's still okay, but they changed the language in the terms of service recently. So instead of saying you can give away reviews to reviewers, they say you can only give away copies for quality purposes. For example, to an editor, or for like an early reader to give you feedback to make the final draft better. So there's kind of a spread between what Amazon polices, what they check and what you'll get in trouble for, and what they have to say on their terms of service. So they want to be ahead of the game, but when they make changes like that, it kind of complicates things. They actually just made another really big change. Well, they made a lot of changes. This is in 2019. One of the changes was, you're only allowed to have a certain amount of back matter. So after the end of the book, you can only have about 10% of extra content or bonus content. And they also say something now in the new terms of service that's something like you can't offer them anything else. And like I said, it's pretty standard procedure to offer something at the back of your book to, an extra, a lead magnet or a reader magnet, people say, to get them to go back to your website. According to the new terms of service, that's a little bit of a gray area where it almost sounds like you can't even do that anymore. I don't think, I've actually asked Amazon about this and they say that it's still fine, and I think everybody's still doing it, but it's an example of, the terms being really strict and a little bit confusing. In regards to reviews, however, generally the standard, this completely depends on so many things, but people often say that you might get about 1 in 100 readers to leave a review. So if you're selling like 100 copies a month, you may only get 1 review a month, but that's cold traffic. If you have an audience that you can reach and give out a free book to, and encourage to review, it's more likely that they will actually take action and review. So you can increase that. Instead of 1 out of 100, you can get up to like 20 or 30 out of 100. It's very difficult. It depends on how engaged you are with your review team and how much they like you. I'm not so good at being really, excited for new releases. I have a really kind of calm and subtle release strategy that I'm working on. And it's actually one of the challenges with my latest launch is that I'm not getting the reviews fast enough. So I actually found out today, one of the reasons was I did this free thing. I made it free on Kindle for a day, but I didn't set it up as an art copy like I usually do. I use BookFunnel. BookFunnel is a site to put up ARC copies of your book. It makes it easy to manage, who's downloading or reviewing. You could also set it up as a landing page where they have to opt in and give you their email. InstaFreebie and BookFunnel are 2 similar services that do this. And they also have the added advantage that you can join joint author promos. So if you have a free book, you can join joint author promos. And then everybody will share the same landing page and you may find new readers for your book. So those are both good services. I use BookFunnel just to put up the files so that people can download them. And I didn't do that this time, which means I asked people actually yesterday on my Facebook group, hey, you guys aren't reviewing my book. Did you like it? What's going on? And one person told me it's because, they don't use Amazon. They're not on Kindle. So even though it was free on Kindle, they didn't download it. So that kind of hurt me a little bit. There's also a cool thing with BookFunnel where you can set up a registered mail campaign so that it's a little weird still. You have to copy and paste the email list of people who have decided to opt in for your ARC copies. And then you have to do that per book. So you have to kind of keep that somewhere else, or you have to get those emails somehow. And then there's this 3-step process where it will send them a link to the book. It will check in halfway through, and then it will say, the book is live, go review it now. And you can set those emails up to go out automatically, which does help conversion quite a bit. So like I said, you are allowed to give out ARC copies 4 reviews even if you're in Kindle Unlimited, but you can't make it like this is for my own audience, and I'll send the link to privately. I wouldn't put it up public. I wouldn't join joint author promos or whatever, because then if you're giving away the book in exchange for an email list to grow your platform, that's against KU. You can only give away your book to ARC reviewers for quality purposes. So you want to be careful about that and how you're using Instant Freebie or BookFunnel. There's also a newer site called Booksprout, which I don't have as much experience with, but they're doing a lot of good things, so I would check them out as well. Instant Freebie, BookFunnel, Booksprout. Last I checked, Booksprout had this weird, they're doing a couple weird things still, like I think their recommended reviewer text, like reviewers automatically post their review to Amazon, but it has something in there like it has a little bit of branding, like it has the Booksprout logo, or it says something about Booksprout, and it uses the language of, I got this book in exchange for a review, which you don't want to use. So I think those are problems with Booksprout that they will probably address. And I think they also have some different features that I'm not as familiar with, but a lot of people like them as well, so you might want to check them out. The other thing with ARC reviewers is that ideally you will send out your book sooner before launch. Hopefully 2 weeks to a month before the book actually launches, you'll have a final polished copy to send them so that they have time to read the book, so that when the book is out, they can review it quickly. Because once it's launched, you have about a month to stay in the bestseller ranks on Amazon. You'll have your own categories, which we'll talk more about later when we talk about bestseller lists, but there's also a space on Amazon for new releases, and you want to be in that list as much as possible when you launch. So you really want to have a strong launch and see some traction in the first month. And if you, like for me, this book I just launched, I launched it I think 2 weeks ago, and I still am barely promoting it because I don't have my 10 reviews yet. So I'm losing a lot of time, and that could have been fixed if I had planned it well enough to have sent out ARC copies a few weeks before the launch date, so that when I'm ready to start promoting, it's difficult. It used to be the case where you could do a thing with CreateSpace where you could publish and then you could publish and then unpublish the print book so that it shows as unavailable, but the product page has been created on Amazon so people could review it. I don't think that trick works anymore with Kindle. You could still, if you have all your ducks in a row, you could just go ahead and publish your print version, because print generally doesn't sell as well anyway. You might sell, it depends on the topic, and some nonfiction books or some genres sell better in print, but generally your print won't be the focus of your marketing anyway, because you want to really push the ebook copy up as much as possible. So you could just publish the print book and leave it there, even though you haven't really launched the ebook yet, so that people could start reviewing it, and then you could do your heavy marketing once the ebook is live. That's kind of a backwards way of doing it, so I probably wouldn't recommend it. I would just put out the ARCs sooner so that they can review the book when it's live. And the problem with that, of course, is that if you don't have an ARC team, if you haven't built an email list, if you don't have a way of reaching people, then nobody is going to review your book. So that's why I really like, especially if it's your first book and you're building your platform, I like giveaways, very targeted giveaways with advertising to build a really targeted list or audience that likes a certain kind of book and will be willing to accept my free book, so that after I do the giveaway, I can say, thanks for signing up, you didn't win, but here's a free book, and try to pull them in a little bit. It gets different once you've built a platform, but even so, I have a list, I think of like 15K for fiction, and when I did that KU free day, I only got about 700 downloads, and I only have 8 reviews as of today, but I think yesterday or the day before, I was only at like 4 reviews. So even if you build a platform, this stuff is a struggle and a challenge, but that's why it's useful to you have to at least try to do this stuff, because this is the limiting things that will destroy your book launch. I know a lot of authors who have already published their books, and months go by, and then they come to me and they say, I need help with my book marketing. I don't know why I'm not selling. And they still don't have any reviews, or they have usually less than 5, or maybe they have less than 10. But if you don't have a lot of reviews, you can get away with, for example, if your blurb isn't great and your cover isn't great, but you have a ton of reviews, you can get away with a lot of other stuff. But more likely, your blurb is mediocre and your cover is mediocre and you have, not many reviews. So altogether, it's not a desirable or an attractive package. Those are really the 3 things that will make or break your book launch: is your cover, your blurb, and your reviews. And hopefully, the cover and the blurb is hard to get right, but you can get it right with professional help. Whereas the reviews is still difficult to get right. You have to build a platform, or you have to, if you don't have a platform, you could just give away a ton of free books. If you give away 1,000 free books, you might assume, 100, 200 people might actually read the book. And then if you're converting at 1%, you get 2 or 3 reviews, which of course is not great, which is why building your own platform or email list is so important, because you can build the relationship and turn them from cold traffic into warm traffic and boost the likelihood that they will read and review your book. So you might notice I'm already losing my voice a bit. I'm kind of an introvert. I don't talk a lot until I do a video, and then it's just a brain dump because I know so much information and I tend to lose my voice pretty quickly. So I'm going to take a break here. This will be part 1. You can take a little break. I'm going to drive a scooter over to Valletta, which is the old medieval capital, the oldest capital in Europe, I'm pretty sure, and do a little bit of sightseeing, and then I'll come back in the evening and finish part 2 of this video.